the internet's everything to go by, you all want to know what this thing's like. We're in the Cayman GT4. We're in beautiful Portugal at Portimao circuit, and we're just doing some warm-up laps behind one of the Porsche instructors. But already you can probably hear this is a Cayman like no other, made by Porsche's Motorsport and GT team. So it's from the same mould as GT3. And it's what we've always wanted the Cayman to be, I would say. We drove the car earlier on today on the road, and as soon as you get in it, it's just got that bit more attitude to capture your attention and to give you the sense that there's something more to learn from the car. There's nothing wrong with a Cayman, nothing wrong with a Cayman S or a GTS, other than the fact that perhaps it gives you everything very early on in your driving experience. If you've driven sports cars before, you kind of feel like you've got to know it too easily, too readily. And that's not to say that they're going to deliberately engineer some flaws into a GT car, but just from the sense of performance and the sense of responsiveness, this is a proper driver's car. I'm sure you know all the stats, but we'll run through a few of the headline figures. It's got the 3.8 litre 385 horsepower motor from the Carrera S. So it's about 310 foot-pounds of torque, so significantly ballsier than any Cayman we've driven up to now. Chassis-wise, they've thrown the kitchen sink at it, really. It's all GT3 front end, brakes, and at the rear it's pretty much all new. So the Motorsport team have done their thing there. And it's got a manual gearbox, which is such a joy to get in a car and have to stir a stick around. It sounds very quaint, but it connects you to the car on a much more physical and mental level than PDK. So in chassis terms, it's a kind of GT3 hybrid almost, with some bespoke parts at the rear end. The big news with this car is the manual gearbox. You're so used to criticising Porsche for not putting a stick in a GT3, and they've kind of listened to that and given us what we've been asking for in this car, and it's so much fun. It's so nice to have to think about what you're doing and match the revs with the speed and pick the right gear and steer at the same time as shifting. It's a totally different challenge. It's not going at the manic kind of pace that a GT3 car will, but you're so busy and so focused on what you're doing. And that's what a driver's car is about. And interestingly, Andreas Preuninger was saying last night when we were discussing the car and the enormous performance that these cars have, that they're actually making a distinction between ultra high performance cars and driver's cars. The driver's car is something that requires a driver to operate, and the ultra high performance stuff is PDK, and they do the lap times and they do the acceleration times. But if you're a purist and perhaps a bit old-fashioned like me in terms of what you like from a car, it's this whole experience is what you crave and what you want from a high-performance Porsche. What a fantastic thing. It's not a motorsport engine. As I've said, it's the Carrera S engine. And if you're coming to this car expecting something extraordinary like the GT3's motor, then it doesn't give you that. But that would require completely re-engineering the car again. The GT3 engine doesn't fit with the intake system. There's a different challenge getting air into and out of a mid-engine car versus a rear-engine car. You couldn't run the manual box with that engine. So, I know it's tempting to, they've given you a GT4, now we want a GT4 RS, you know, why can't you stick a GT3 motor in it, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing to say that they can't do something like that, but it's not the work of a moment. It's another complete re-engineering job. We know Andreas Preuninger and his team like a challenge, and I'm sure, you know, they're thinking very hard about how to improve on this car, because that's why they get out of bed every morning, is to make their cars faster and more exciting. If you're coming from a Cayman, regular Cayman, this is not another world, but in the way it steers and stops and handles, it's something of a different magnitude, I think, in terms of capability, both on the road and on the circuit. It's a proper motorsport GT car. It has poise and grip, and it's got some balls in the way it delivers its performance, and it forces you to think about how you drive it and how to get the best from it and how to adjust its attitude mid-corner and under braking in a way that the Cayman S and GTS, they just don't have that reach and that potency, and that's what maybe leaves you a little bit wanting in those cars. They're wonderful things, they're lovely cars to drive, but they don't raise their game, and they don't require you to raise your game. This car does, and that's why I think we've all been so excited about it, because that's what it's promised. And from what we've experienced today, it absolutely delivers.